The Great Hall of the Galaxy Council was filled with representatives from 47 different species. They came from worlds scattered across thousands of light years, each one believing their civilization was important, each one convinced they had earned their place among the stars. But today, something was different. Today, the air felt heavy with tension that even the advanced climate systems could not filter away. Ambassador? Nathan Cole walked slowly toward the central podium. He was 63 years old, with gray hair and deep lines on his face that told stories of too many sleepless nights and too many difficult decisions. For 20 years, he had served as humanity's voice in this chamber. For 20 years, he had smiled when he wanted to scream, had nodded politely when he wanted to slam his fist on the table. Today, he was done pretending. The Sindari delegation sat in the highest seats, as they always did. Their insect-like bodies clicked and shifted as they watched the human approach. High Counselor Vexroth, their leader, had compound eyes that reflected the chamber lights like broken mirrors. He had ruled this council for over a century. He had never hidden his contempt for the younger species. Nathan reached the podium, placed his hands flat on its surface. He did not activate the translation system. He did not request permission to speak. He simply began. 312 years ago, humanity joined this council. We were young then, eager, grateful for the opportunity to learn. From species who had traveled the stars while we were still learning to make fire. He paused and looked around the chamber. We thought we had found a family. Murmurs rippled through the alien delegations. This was not how council addresses usually began. There were protocols, formal greetings, acknowledgments of the various species' contributions. Nathan ignored all of them. In those 300 years, humanity has given everything to this council. When the Cathari swarm threatened the Outer Rim colonies, it was human soldiers who held the line. 4 million of our people died defending worlds they had never seen, protecting species who had never thanked them. Admiral Lisa Grant watched from the observation gallery above. She was 51 years old, with short brown hair and eyes that had seen too much death. She had commanded the defense fleet at Proxima Station during the swarm. War. She remembered the names of every soldier under her command who had not come home. She remembered the silence from the council when she had requested reinforcements. When the Valari plague threatened to spread across the trade routes, it was human scientists who developed the cure. We shared it freely, asking nothing in return except friendship and respect. Nathan's voice grew harder. When the hyperspace gates began to fail, it was human engineers who rebuilt them. When the translation networks crashed, it was human linguists who restored communication between your worlds. High Counselor Vexroth made a dismissive clicking sound with his mandibles. Ambassador Cole, we are all aware of humanity's contributions. They have been noted and compensated according to council regulations. Compensated. Nathan almost laughed, but there was no humor in the sound. After the Swarm War, the council imposed trade restrictions on human merchants because our military success made other species nervous. After we cured the Valari plague, we were accused of developing biological weapons. After we rebuilt the hyperspace gates, we were banned from certain systems because we might use our technical knowledge to spy on our allies. The chamber fell silent. These were not secrets, but they were truths that no one had ever spoken aloud in this hall. Lieutenant Commander Daniel Hayes sat in the human section of the gallery, his hands gripping the armrests of his chair. He was 34 years old, a scientist who had spent the last decade studying alien ecosystems on the Outer Rim. He had watched the council bureaucracy crush promising research projects simply because they were led by humans. He had seen talented colleagues leave the service in frustration. Last month, Nathan continued, the Council Security Committee released a report describing humanity as a destabilizing influence on galactic peace. It recommended reducing human participation in joint military operations. It suggested closer monitoring of human colony ships. It proposed restricting human access to advanced technology, sharing programs. He pulled a small data chip from his pocket and held it up for the chamber to see. We have spent 3 centuries proving our loyalty to this council. We have bled for you. We have died for you. We have given you our knowledge, our resources, our trust. He placed the chip on the podium. And you have repaid us with suspicion, restriction, and contempt. High Counselor Vexroth rose from his seat, his wings buzzing with irritation. Ambassador Cole, you forget yourself. Humanity exists within this council at our pleasure. Your species would still be burning fossil fuels on your single planet if we had not lifted you up. Nathan smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. That is exactly the attitude I am talking about. He tapped the data chip. This contains humanity's formal withdrawal from the Galaxy Council. All treaties are terminated. All agreements are void. All mutual defense pacts are canceled. Effective immediately. The chamber erupted into chaos. Species who had not agreed on anything in centuries suddenly found common ground in their disbelief. Delegates shouted questions and accusations. Security officers moved toward the podium, unsure of what to do. Nathan did not move. He stood at the center of the storm, calm and certain. Cannot simply leave, sputtered Delegate Morthen of the Valari Empire. His purple skin had turned almost black with stress. The economic consequences would be catastrophic for everyone, including your own people. That is no longer humanity's concern, Nathan replied. You made it clear that we are not truly part of this community. Very well, we will build our own community. We will trade with those who respect us. We will defend only ourselves. Admiral Lisa Grant had already activated her communication device. Within minutes, every human vessel in Council space would receive the recall order. Research stations would go dark. Embassies would seal their doors. The great merchant fleets that had connected distant systems for generations would plot courses back to Earth. High Counselor Vexrath's scowpound eyes reflected nothing but cold calculation. If you do this, there will be no coming back. The Council will not forget this insult. Nathan gathered the data chip and stepped away from the podium. We are counting on it. He walked out of the chamber without looking back. Behind him, the most powerful beings in the galaxy watched in stunned silence as everything they had built began to crumble. Lieutenant Maria Santos found Commander Hayes in the corridor outside the gallery. Her dark eyes were filled with worry. Sir, I have family on the Valari colony worlds. What happens to them now? Hayes had no answer. None of them did. The humans of the Galaxy Council had just become something they had never been before, alone. But as Nathan Cole stepped onto the transport that would carry him back to Earth, he felt something he had not felt in 20 years of diplomatic service. He felt free. The stars outside the viewport seemed brighter somehow, as if they were welcoming humanity home. 6 months passed after humanity left the Galaxy Council. At first, the other species believed this was just a negotiating tactic. Humans were emotional creatures, they told themselves. They would calm down, realize their mistake, and come crawling back to beg for forgiveness. They were wrong. On the forest world of Kethera Prime, Chief Agricultural Scientist Ethrel stood at the edge of a field that stretched to the horizon. 6 months ago, this land had been covered with crops that fed 3 billion people. Now, it was covered with death. The plants had turned brown and brittle. Their leaves crumbled to dust at the slightest touch. The soil, once rich and dark, had become gray and lifeless. I do not understand, Ethrel said to the planetary governor, who stood beside him. We followed all the standard procedures. We applied the fertilizers. We maintained the irrigation systems. The governor's antennae drooped with despair. The fertilizers were developed by human scientists specifically for our soil. The irrigation systems were designed and maintained by human engineers. We have been using their technology for 80 years, and no one ever thought to learn how it actually worked. Threll pulled a dead plant from the ground and examined its roots. They were twisted and blackened, destroyed by chemicals that should have helped them grow. We used the wrong concentrations. The formulas were in human measurement systems, and our conversion was incorrect. Can we contact the humans? Ask them for help. I have tried 17 times. They do not respond to our communications. We are no longer part of their network. Similar scenes were happening across Council space. The great hyperspace gates, which allowed ships to travel between distant stars in hours instead of years, began experiencing malfunctions. The gates had been built by a cooperative effort of many species, but humans had designed the control systems. Without human maintenance updates, small errors accumulated into large problems. On the trade route between the Sindari homeworld and the Outer Rim colonies, a hyperspace gate flickered and died without warning. 47 ships were trapped in transit, lost somewhere in the space between spaces. Search teams found only debris. The Universal Translation Network, a gift humanity had shared freely centuries ago, began to degrade. Diplomatic meetings became confused, shouting matches as translation errors turned simple statements into deadly insults. A minor trade dispute between the Volari and the Horith nearly escalated into war because the word for discount was mistranslated as the word for dishonor. High Counselor Vexroth convened emergency sessions almost daily. The economic reports were devastating. Without human trade ships, entire systems faced isolation. Their own merchant fleets were too small and too slow to maintain the complex web of commerce that kept galactic civilization running. "This is a temporary setback," Vexroth insisted during one such session. His compound eyes scanned the worried faces of the other delegates. "We have survived without humans before. We will survive without them again." Ambassador Trelvik of the Horith Dominion stood to speak. He was one of the few who had opposed humanity's treatment during the Security Committee hearings. His gray skin was marked with the traditional scars of his warrior caste, but his words were those of a diplomat. "With respect, High Counselor, we have never survived without humans. Not in any of our lifetimes. Humanity joined this council 300 years ago, and within a generation, they'd become essential to everything we do. We became dependent on them while convincing ourselves they were dependent on us. Then we will learn to be independent again," Vexroth replied sharply. "Learn from whom? Our best engineers studied under human teachers. Our most advanced medical facilities use human-designed equipment. Our military tactics are based on human strategies." Trelvik shook his head slowly. "We did not just lose trading partners, High Counselor. We lost the foundation of our civilization. On the Sindari homeworld, food prices had tripled in 6 months. The Sindari were not farmers. They had relied on imported goods for generations. Now, with the trade routes collapsing and the agricultural world struggling, their people faced the impossible reality of hunger. Riots broke out in the lower districts of the capital city. Security forces tried to maintain order, but they were trained for dealing with political protests, not desperate crowds fighting over bread. Meanwhile, within the secure boundaries of human space, a different kind of transformation was taking place. Admiral Lisa Grant stood on the observation deck of Titan Station, watching construction drones assemble massive structures in the void beyond Saturn. The station was one of 17 major construction facilities that had been operating at maximum capacity since the withdrawal. "Status report," she said to Chief Engineer Kevin Park, who stood beside her with a data tablet in his hands. Kevin was 42 years old. With tired eyes and grease stains on his uniform that no cleaning system could fully remove, he had not slept more than 4 hours a night since the recall order. None of them had. 6 Dreadnought-class vessels are ready for deployment, he reported. 40 more are in various stages of construction. The defensive grid around the Sol system is fully operational. Any ship that enters our space without authorization will be detected within seconds and destroyed within minutes. Lisa nodded slowly. "In the civilian sector?" Kevin pulled up a holographic display showing economic data. "Population growth is stable. Resource extraction from the outer planets exceeds all projections. Ambassador Cole's economic team reports that our internal trade networks are actually more efficient than the Council systems ever were. It turns out that cutting out 300 years of bureaucratic overhead has been liberating." "We are not building for liberation," Lisa said quietly. "We are building for what comes next." "What do you mean?" Lisa turned to face him. Her expression was calm, but her eyes held shadows of knowledge she wished she did not possess. "The Council is falling apart. Their economy is collapsing. Their infrastructure is failing. Sooner or later, someone will see opportunity in that chaos. Someone will decide that now is the perfect time to take what they want by force. And when that happens, we will be ready. Not to save them. She turned back to the viewport, watching another massive hull section being moved into place, but to protect ourselves from the consequences of their failure. Kevin was silent for a long moment. Do you think they will ask for our help? They already have. Ambassador Cole has received 47 formal requests for humanitarian assistance in the last month alone. Lisa's voice was flat, emotionless. He has denied every single one. That seems harsh. It is necessary. If we go back now, nothing will have changed. They will smile and thank us until the crisis passes, and then they will go right back to treating us like servants. She placed her hand on the cold glass of the viewport. They need to understand what life without humanity truly means. They need to feel it. Only then will they be ready to treat us as equals. Outside, in the endless darkness of space, human construction drones worked without rest. They were building something new, something powerful, something that would change the galaxy forever. The silence from Earth continued, and in that silence, the seeds of a new order were being planted. 1 year after humanity left the Galaxy Council, the Morthax hegemony attacked. The Morthax were a reptilian species from the far edge of known space. They were cold-blooded in every sense of the word. Their empire had grown through conquest for thousands of years, absorbing weaker species and stripping their worlds of resources. The Galaxy Council had kept them in check through a combination of trade, restrictions, and military deterrence. But the military deterrence had been provided by humanity, and humanity was gone. Admiral Krathfer stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the tactical display with hungry yellow eyes. Before him, the border systems of the Valari Empire glowed like jewels waiting to be stolen. The Valari defense fleet is pathetic, his tactical officer reported. 12 ships, most of them outdated patrol vessels. They have nothing that can challenge our battle group. Krathfer's lipless mouth stretched into something that might have been a smile. The humans kept these systems safe for generations. The Valari grew soft under their protection. They forgot how to fight. Shall we proceed with the attack, Admiral? Begin the invasion. The Morthax fleet struck without warning. Their ships were brutal and efficient, designed for one purpose: destruction, within hours. They had overwhelmed the Valari border defenses and begun landing troops on the colony worlds. High Counselor Vexroth received the news during what was supposed to be a routine budget meeting. His compound eyes processed the tactical data, and for the first time in his long life, he felt something close to fear. Send reinforcements immediately, he ordered. Contact all Council military forces and coordinate a response. His military advisor, a young Sindari named Vexal, shifted uncomfortably. High Counselor, our military forces are not prepared for this kind of engagement. We have been relying on human peacekeeping units for decades. Our own ships are designed for patrol duty, not combat. Then contact the Cathari, the Horith. Anyone who has fighting capability. The Cathari have no military tradition. The Horith have a small defensive force. But they have already stated they will not sacrifice their people for a council that ignored their warnings about the Morthax threat. Vexroth slammed his forelimb on the table, cracking the polished surface. Then contact the humans. Offer them whatever they want. Full restoration of trade rights, formal apologies, financial compensation, anything. Ambassador Trelvik, who had been summoned to the emergency meeting, spoke quietly from his seat. I have already attempted to contact Earth through back channels. Ambassador Cole declined to respond. Then try again. Beg if you have to. With respect, High Counselor, begging will not work. The humans left because we treated them as servants while depending on them for everything. Going to them now, when we need something, will only confirm what they already believe about us. The Morthax advance continued unchecked. World after world fell, as the Council scrambled to mount a defense that kept failing before it could begin. Refugee ships flooded toward the core systems. Overwhelming resources that were already strained by the ongoing economic collapse. On Earth, Nathan Cole sat in his office watching the intelligence reports scroll across his screen. Each report brought news of another atrocity. The Morthax were not interested in conquest alone. They wanted to send a message. They wanted the galaxy to know that the old order was finished. Ambassador, you have a visitor. His aide, Christopher Barnes, stood in the doorway with a troubled expression on his young face. High Counselor Vexroth has come personally. He is requesting an immediate audience. Nathan did not look up from his screen. Tell him I am unavailable. Sir, he traveled 3 weeks to get here. He came alone, without guards or staff. He says he will wait as long as necessary. Nathan finally raised his eyes. Christopher was 28 years old, idealistic in the way that only the young could afford to be. He had not lived through the decades of insults and dismissals. He had not attended the funerals of soldiers who died for ungrateful allies. Do you think I should see him? Christopher hesitated. I think millions of people are dying while we debate politics. I think we have the power to stop it. I think that counts for something. It counts for everything. Nathan stood and walked to the window. Outside, the city of Geneva spread beneath a clear blue sky. Children played in parks. Couples walked along the lake. Life continued, peaceful and ordinary, while the galaxy burned. The question is not whether we can help. The question is whether helping will change anything. If it does not, then we will have sacrificed our leverage for nothing. We will have shown them that they can treat us badly for centuries and then come running to us when they need something, and we will always be there to save them. Nathan turned to face his aide. That is not a lesson I want to teach. Then what lesson do we want to teach? Nathan was silent for a long moment. Through the window, he could see a transport ship rising toward orbit, carrying supplies to the construction facilities that continued their work among the stars. We want to teach them that actions have consequences. That trust, once broken, must be earned back through more than words. That humanity is not a tool to be used and discarded. He took a deep breath. But we also want to teach them that we are capable of mercy. That we can be harsh, but not cruel. That when they are truly ready to change, we will be there. How do we know when they are ready? We wait. We watch. And when the time is right, we act. Nathan moved toward the door. Tell the High Counselor I will see him in 1 hour. Let him wait and think about how he got here. In the outer systems, the war continued. Morthak's forces pushed deeper into Council territory, meeting resistance that was brave but hopelessly outmatched. The Volari fought for their homes with whatever weapons they could find. The Cathari, who had never held a weapon in their lives, learned to fight out of desperate necessity. Admiral Lisa Grant monitored the conflict from Titan Station. Her tactical displays showed the slow collapse of the Council's defensive lines. She could predict almost exactly when each system would fall. When each fleet would be destroyed, the Morthaks will reach the Sindari border in approximately 4 months, she said to her staff during their morning briefing. At that point, they will have a choice: consolidate their gains or push for the core systems. What do you think they will choose? Commander Daniel Hayes asked. They will push. They have momentum, and they know the Council cannot stop them. Why settle for half a victory when complete triumph is within reach? And what will we do? Lisa looked at the tactical display for a long moment. Somewhere in that vast map of stars and systems, millions of beings were dying because the galaxy had forgotten how to protect itself. We will be ready, she said. When the moment comes, we will be ready. She did not say what they would be ready for. None of them did. But they all knew that humanity's isolation could not last forever. The galaxy was falling apart, and sooner or later, someone would have to put it back. Together, the only question was on whose terms: the battle for Sindari. Prime was almost over when the first human ships appeared. The Morthaks had been bombarding the planet for 3 days. Their weapons had shattered the great cities that the Sindari had spent thousands of years building. Fires burned across continents. Millions of civilians huddled in underground shelters, waiting for death or rescue. High Counselor Vexroth stood in the command bunker beneath what had once been the council chambers. The screens around him showed nothing but destruction. His fleet was gone, destroyed in a desperate last stand that had bought only hours. His allies had fled or fallen. His empire, which had ruled the galaxy for so long, was dying around him.
A counselor.
His communications officer called out, her voice shaking with fear and exhaustion. We are detecting new contacts emerging from hyperspace. Many contacts. Vexroth closed his compound eyes. More Morthax reinforcements. It was finished. High Counselor, the contacts are not Morthax. The signatures are... they are human. His eyes snapped open. On the tactical display, dozens of icons were appearing at the edge of the system. Then hundreds. Then more than he could count. Commander Daniel Hayes stood on the bridge of the Constellation, one of the new Dreadnought-class vessels that had been built during humanity's year of isolation. Through the viewport, he could see the burning world of Sindari Prime and the Morthax fleet that surrounded it. Admiral Grant, we are in position, he reported through the fleet communication network. Morthax forces outnumber us approximately 3-1. Lisa's voice came back, calm and steady, as if she were discussing the weather rather than the largest battle in galactic history. Understood, Commander. All ships, weapons free. Show them what humanity has become. The human fleet advanced like a wave of steel and fire. Their ships were sleek and powerful, designed with technology that had been kept secret during their centuries of Council membership. Weapons systems that no alien species had ever seen. Shields that shifted frequencies faster than any enemy could track. Engines that moved with impossible precision. Admiral Crathver of the Morthax. Fleet watched the human ships approach with growing confusion. His species had studied human military capabilities extensively. They knew the specifications of every vessel class, the range of every weapon system, the tactics of every commander. What he was seeing did not match any of that intelligence. All ships, engage the human fleet, he ordered. They are outnumbered. We will crush them and then finish what we started on the surface. The Morthax fleet turned to face the new threat. Their weapons opened fire, filling space with deadly energy. The human ships did not slow down. They did not scatter. They flew directly into the storm of weapons fire, and somehow, impossibly, their shields held. Lieutenant Maria Santos manned the weapons station on the Constellation. Her hands moved across the control panels with practiced precision, targeting Morthax vessels with the ship's main batteries. Target locked, she reported. Firing. The Constellation's main guns were quantum-locked targeting systems, capable of hitting targets that conventional weapons could not touch. The beam of energy that erupted from the ship's bow did not travel through normal space. It simply appeared inside the Morthax vessel's engine room. Bypassing shields and armor entirely, the Morthax cruiser exploded from within. Across the battlefield, similar scenes played out. Human weapons found their targets with supernatural accuracy. Human ships moved in perfect coordination, each vessel knowing exactly where its allies would be and adjusting its tactics accordingly. Human shields absorbed punishment that should have destroyed them 10 times over. Admiral Crathver watched his fleet being torn apart. His flagship shook as another human weapon found its mark.
Ow! Is this possible?
He demanded. Our intelligence said they were weak. Our intelligence said they depended on the Council for protection. His tactical officer had no answer. None of them did. The battle lasted for hours. When it was over, the Morthax armada had been reduced to drifting wreckage. Their flagship was captured intact, its command structure shattered by a single precision strike that had killed Admiral Crathver instantly, on the surface of Sindari Prime. The survivors emerged from their shelters to see human landing craft descending through the smoke-filled sky. They expected conquerors. They expected revenge for centuries of insults and dismissals. Instead, they found medical teams treating the wounded without asking what species they were. Engineers already working to restore power and clean water. Soldiers distributing food to refugees who hours ago had been their enemies. Admiral Lisa Grant landed in the ruins of the capital city. She walked through the destruction until she found High Counselor Vexroth. Standing alone in what had been the main plaza, the Sindari leader looked older than she remembered. His wings were torn and dirty. His compound eyes, which had once reflected nothing but arrogance, now showed something closer to humility. "You came," he said. His voice was quiet, almost disbelieving. Lisa stopped a few meters away. She did not salute. She did not bow. She simply looked at him with eyes that held neither hatred nor forgiveness. "You will have questions," she said. "Here are the answers that matter. We did not return for you. We did not return for the Council. We returned because the Morthax threatened to destabilize the entire galaxy, and a destabilized galaxy threatens humanity.
Ow.
Then you are still willing to work with us. Work with you. Yes. Work for you, never again." Lisa gestured at the human soldiers moving through the ruins, helping survivors regardless of species. "The Council, as you knew it, is finished. The organization that treated humanity as expendable tools will not be restored. But something new can be built. Something better. What do you want from us?" Lisa turned to look at the sky, where human ships still patrolled above the wounded world. "We want what we have always wanted. Respect. Partnership. To be treated as equals rather than servants." She met his eyes again. "The question is whether you are capable of giving us that." Vexroth was silent for a long moment. Around them, the sounds of rescue and recovery filled the air. Human voices calling out to survivors. Alien voices answering in languages that the translation network, hastily restored by human technicians, struggled to interpret. "I do not know," he finally admitted. "I have ruled this galaxy for over a century. I have always believed that the Sindari were destined to lead, that other species existed to serve our vision." He looked at his ruined city, at the bodies being carried from the rubble by human soldiers. "Perhaps I was wrong. Perhaps you were." Lisa's voice softened slightly. "The good news is that being wrong is not permanent. You can choose to be different. You can choose to build something that does not repeat the mistakes of the past. And if we cannot change, then we will do what must be done without you. The galaxy will be rebuilt, whether you participate or not." Lisa began walking back toward her landing craft. "But I hope you will participate. I hope you will prove that everything humanity suffered in your service was not completely wasted." She left him standing in the ruins of his empire, surrounded by the ashes of his arrogance. Behind her, human rescue teams continued their work, saving lives without asking for thanks or payment. It was not forgiveness. It was not reconciliation. But it was a beginning, and beginnings, humanity had learned, were sometimes the most important things of all. 5 years had passed since humanity abandoned the Galaxy Council. The station that now orbited Sindari Prime was not the same one that had witnessed Nathan Cole's angry departure. That structure had been destroyed during the Morthax bombardment. This one was new, built by human engineers and alien workers together, a symbol of something that had never existed before. They called it the Galactic Compact. And today was its first formal assembly. Ambassador Nathan Cole walked toward the central podium for the second time in his career, but everything else was different. The chamber was designed differently, with seating arranged in a circle rather than a hierarchy. No species sat higher than any other. No delegation had more space or better views. The faces watching him were familiar, but their expressions had changed. The arrogance that had once filled these halls was gone, replaced by something that might have been humility, or at least exhaustion from learning humility the hard way. 5 years ago, I stood in a chamber very much like this one and announced that humanity was leaving the Galaxy Council. Nathan began. His voice was calm, measured, carrying none of the anger that had driven his previous speech. Many of you thought we were being emotional, acting out of wounded pride. Some of you believed we would come crawling back within months. He paused and looked around the circular chamber. You were wrong about our motivations, but we were also wrong about the consequences. We believed that leaving would teach you the value of what we had given. We did not expect the suffering that followed. We did not anticipate the millions who would die in the Morthax War, the systems that would collapse, the civilizations that would be shattered. Admiral Lisa Grant sat in the human delegation section, her uniform now bearing the insignia of the Compact's Unified Defense Force. Beside her, Commander Daniel Hayes reviewed patrol schedules for the new border monitoring stations. Around them, Human and alien officers worked together on tablets and displays, coordinating the ongoing recovery efforts. The Galactic Compact is not the Galaxy Council, Nathan continued. It is built on different principles. Every member has an equal voice. Every member contributes according to their ability. Every member accepts responsibility for the consequences of their decisions. Delegate Vexroth, no longer High Counselor but simply the representative of the Sindari people, rose to speak. The years had changed him in ways that went beyond physical appearance. His movements were slower, more careful. His voice, when he spoke, lacked the commanding certainty it had once held. The Sindari Collective accepts the terms of the compact. We acknowledge the errors of our past leadership. We committed ourselves to partnership rather than dominance. He paused, his mandibles clicking in what humans had learned to recognize as discomfort with difficult emotions. And we thank humanity for returning, even when we did not deserve their help. The chamber was silent for a moment. Then Ambassador Trelvik of the Horith rose to add his voice. The Horith Dominion also accepts. We warned against the treatment of humanity for many years, but we take no satisfaction in being proven right. Too many died for any of us to feel vindicated. And one by one, the other delegations rose to pledge their participation. The Cathari who had learned to fight during the war and would never forget those terrible lessons. The Valari, whose empire had been reduced by half but whose survivors had developed a new appreciation for the value of allies. Even representatives from species who had previously been too small or too isolated to matter in galactic politics. Lieutenant Maria Santos watched the proceedings from the gallery. She had finally been able to bring her family from the former Valari colony worlds. They had survived the war barely, and were now building new lives on a human station. Her sister's children were learning to speak both human languages and Valari. Growing up in a galaxy that was fundamentally different from the one their parents had known. The formal business of the assembly continued for hours. Trade agreements were negotiated with transparent terms that all parties could verify. Defense responsibilities were distributed based on actual capability rather than political power. Research partnerships were established with clear agreements about credit and compensation. Chief Engineer Ree Park presented plans for rebuilding the hyperspace gate network. The new system would be maintained by teams from multiple species, with training programs to ensure that no single civilization held all the critical knowledge. We will never again be dependent on one species for essential infrastructure, he explained. But more importantly, we will never again take that infrastructure for granted. Every engineer who works on these systems will understand how they were almost lost, and why sharing knowledge is more valuable than hoarding it. As the day ended, Nathan found himself standing on an observation deck looking out at the stars. Lisa joined him after a while, and they stood together in comfortable silence. "Do you think it will last?" she finally asked. Nathan considered the question carefully. He had spent 50 years in diplomacy, learning that grand promises meant little without the will to keep them. He had seen treaties signed with great ceremony and broken within months. He had watched alliances crumble under the weight of self-interest. "Nothing lasts forever," he said, "but this is better than what came before." They understand now, I think. They understand that cooperation cannot be taken for granted. They understand that relationships require respect from all sides. They understand that even the most patient people have limits. And if they forget, Nathan smiled, but there was steel beneath the expression. Then we will remind them, as many times as necessary. But I think, he paused, choosing his words carefully, I think this time might be different. They did not just hear about consequences. They lived them. They buried their dead. They rebuilt their cities. That kind of lesson stays with people. Outside the viewport, a human patrol ship glided past, its sleek form catching the light of distant stars. It was one of thousands that now served in the Compact's unified fleet. Crewed by officers from a dozen different species working together under human command structures that had been adapted to include everyone. Maria Santos was on one of those ships now, serving as first officer under a Horith captain who had once been an enemy. They had learned to trust each other during the desperate final battles of the war, and that trust had grown into something like friendship. Daniel Hayes was overseeing the construction of new research stations on the Outer Rim, facilities that would study alien ecosystems with teams that included scientists from every member species. The work that had been crushed by council bureaucracy was finally moving forward, faster and better than it ever had before. Kevin Park was training the next generation of engineers, teaching them not just how to build and maintain the great machines of galactic civilization, but why it mattered that everyone understood how those machines worked. The compact was young and fragile, untested by the crises that would inevitably come. There would be disagreements, conflicts, moments when old habits threatened to reassert themselves. The Sindari would sometimes slip back into their commanding ways. The humans would sometimes grow impatient with the pace of change. Trust that had been built over years could be damaged in moments of carelessness. But for the first time in galactic history, there was a foundation of genuine equality. There was a shared understanding that no species, no matter how powerful or numerous, could be dismissed without consequences. There was a memory of what happened when cooperation failed, and that memory would guide decisions for generations to come. Nathan turned away from the viewport and began walking back toward the assembly chamber. There was more work to do, more agreements to finalize, more futures to build. "Coming?" he asked Lisa. She nodded and fell into step beside him. Always. Behind them, through the viewport, the stars shone with the same cold light that had witnessed the rise and fall of countless civilizations. They did not care about the small creatures who reached for them with hope and fear and stubborn determination, but those small creatures cared about each other now. And that, in the end, was what mattered most. The turmoil was over. The real work was just beginning.